What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's been about a week now since we've been iced in here in Oregon, and we're all back to work now. So we've got a lot going on here, and we want to get you up to speed, show you some of the new exciting products we got, and a whole bunch of stuff in between. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alright guys, so we have acquired an empty hull from a customer of ours, and he has a new hull. It's a long story. We're just going to leave it at that, but we have a new shop boat. This thing had a little incident with a stump, as you can see here. That side of the boat was pushed in far enough where you couldn't even put your left knee beyond anywhere but straight. So this thing's seen better days. It's had a couple of run-ins with some objects in nature, we'll say. But we found a used, lowish hour, 230 horse Rotax to put in it. It's got about 60 hours on it. Didn't run when I picked it up, but it ended up running really well. Got pretty lucky on that one. We did put a new fuel system in it. We reused a couple items that we could out of the other hull. We ended up having to order new front seats for it, put all new electronics in it. We haven't changed anything color-wise or design-wise. We're just kind of leaving it in its raw state. These seats actually were rejects for Police McFarland's Motion Raceworks boat. They were misstitched, or they had the wrong piping color on them. So we had these laying around. So we just matched the front seats to the rears. The whole idea of this build is kind of a rat rod build, where we're using extra parts that we've had laying around the shop. Not everything's perfect on this thing, and it's not designed to be, because we're going to beat the living hell out of this thing. The bottom's already dented, the side's already dented. Someone's knocked the new completely off of it, so it's perfect for what we need to do with it. As you see, Ethan put some custom tie downs on our awesome Bimini top. Got some nice polished aluminum right here. Fresh bird crap all over it. Ended up with a Made in Vietnam sticker on it somehow. Yeah, we got lots of big plans for this thing. We're gonna run it into the ground and see and show you guys what these things can actually handle. Looking good, Ethan?
Yeah. Good on this side. Look at all that rusty water coming out.
You know, Alex would be proud of us for this.
Oh, nice. You're off the trailer right now.
Gotta make a couple quick trailer adjustments on the stanchion so the boat's perfectly balanced on the trailer. It's too far forward, it's a little jarring when you're going down the road. It's too far back, a lighter vehicle could start to fishtail. So ideally we like the bottom of the boat to end at a 1/4 inch at the end of this bunk.
Good job, Brian.
Alex isn't gonna be proud of you anymore.
It's the nicest part on the boat now.
Right.
Yeah, the trailer's more cost as much as the boat.
Sorry, Alex, we can't run flatbed life anymore. Alright. Ready for floodwaters. Alright guys, we got it loaded on its new trailer. Let us know in the comments what you'd like to see this thing go through. We got lots of river rock around here. We have boulders, we have mud, we have sand. We get a lot of questions about how these boats handle different situations. If you want to give us some ideas and let us know within reason or legality, we're probably down to do it. Stay tuned for the adventures of Beater Boat Billy. Bikinis get a lot of views. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull that off. We might be in the doghouse, so we'll come up with some good ideas for it. She's not going to live a very good life, though. I can assure you that.
It'll be a happy boat.
It'll be a happy boat.
It'll put smiles on faces for sure.
Until Ethan has to fix it.
Yeah.
So the purpose of this episode is to let you guys all know the differences between the 230 horse version, the 300 horse, and the 325, since we have all three in the shop today. The 230 horse is the exact same block as the 300, just slightly detuned, whether it's through ECU tuning, smaller injectors, less boost. There's very minimal differences, but I will tell you this, I was highly surprised how well this performed versus some of the local boats here that are all 300 powered. The 230 kept up, no problem, and we found it to be about 2 miles an hour slower top speed, which is not a big deal to me personally. I don't run my boat at top speed very often, but for the speed freaks, that may make a difference to you. I will say the 230 horse is $4,000 less than the 300 for that engine package. And literally for about $1,100, a little bit of tuning, you can get it up close to 300. So if you're looking to save a bunch of money, the 230 is an excellent option. The drive shaft strength remains the same. The exhaust is slightly smaller. That's one thing we noticed. The can diameter is smaller and shorter. Fuel pump's the same. The intercooler is much smaller height-wise, but length and width, it remains the same. Besides that, there's really not that many differences. If you chose a 230, you're not going to regret it by any means, especially with that $4,000 savings. So we'll move over to a 300 next, and I know you guys have probably seen us show 100 of those, so we won't spend much time on it, but then we'll showcase the 325 after that. Kind of an interesting vessel. This one's actually getting exported to the country of Georgia, so it's going to be going a long ways from here. So we're ensuring that everything is perfect on it. I mean, we ensure everything's perfect on them before they all leave. This one's got a very long journey ahead of it to its new owner. Got the 300 in it. This is one of our Apex models. It's not quite done yet, but we're getting it there. Standard issue 300. 300 horsepower, turns 8,050 RPMs, 20-gallon tank. I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing me talk about this thing, but this is our bread and butter engine. It is excellent for reliability, fuel consumption, and all-around performance.
How you doing, baby puppy?
I don't very much.
This is a 325. We've had this done for a while, but with the ice storm and so much stuff going on around the shop, we haven't really been able to tell you much about it. But this has a brand new 2024 Sea-Doo 325 horsepower Rotax in it, which has an enormous amount of upgrades to it. Forged rocker arms, planetary driven supercharger, dual fuel pumps, rising rate fuel pressure, complete with O2 sensors. The list goes on and on with this thing. BRP beefed up the internals heavily, and they added additional oiling to underneath the piston skirts. I mean, the list is so long. There's a very good article on Green Hulk about it. I'll post a link description of this video if you want to read in depth into this engine. The supercharger now spends 100,000 RPMs, which is up about 40,000 RPMs from the 300 horse version. When I read that, I was so excited to hear what the supercharger was going to sound like. But when we first started the engine, I was quite amazed. It is literally dead silent. You cannot hear any supercharger whine at all, which is a really good thing for guys with families that have small children or want to carry dogs that are very sensitive to loud noises and high pitch. 325 does not give off that high pitch noise anymore, which is kind of a bummer for us performance minded guys, where that supercharger line is life. So more power, quieter engine. This, I also notice it has a massive amount of low end torque. And the only way I can really explain it is that the 325 in normal mode feels like a 300 in sport mode. If any of you have driven these or ridden the jet ski version, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's just tons of power down low. It doesn't feel like the engine's working as hard, even though they did bump the rev limiter up to right around or just under 8,300, which is up from the 8,050 on the 300s and the 230s. So, well, all that being said, we did run into some new challenges, and we'll show you guys kind of some of the special tools required for the new drive shaft design. We did have to make some special tools because they're not available in the mini jet world, but we'll show those to you now. If you guys are going to do your own maintenance on the drive lines, pumps, carbon seal, whatnot, you are going to need a couple special tools that are required for the jet ski as well as the mini jet boat. So Sea-Doo got rid of the C-clip that retains the stainless steel hat that mates up to the carbon seal, which has now been replaced by a 42 millimeter nut. In order to torque and actually to tighten and loosen that nut, you will need this special tool. 529-035-985 is the Sea-Doo part number. And what this does is once the pump is removed, this will go onto the drive shaft. One person will have to hold this, or you'll have to get creative to wedge it up against the swim deck or the ground. And then you can use the special modified 42 millimeter wrench. Jeremy made that. He can tell you all about it.
Yeah, we couldn't get the wrench down in there because it's such a tight fit, so we just rounded off about an inch off. We used to go like this.
Kept hitting the supercharger and or the drive line, so you do need to shave it down.
Yep.
And I don't even think that's a 42 millimeter. I think
It's an inch and 5/8.
inch and 5/8 and a little bit of filing or belt sander on the ID.
Yep, that's right. We did take the belt sander in there.
So if you want to do it right, get a 42 millimeter, or you can build something like this. The nut's actually aluminum, so it's super low torque. It's literally effortless to back it off and to tighten it. And it's got a captive lock washer on it where you bend all the tabs around a castle nut style nut. So not much difference there. With the driveline being splined now threaded versus splined, that introduced these issues with it, but nothing that a regular guy installing himself can't overcome. The intercooler was the same size, wasn't it?
Yes. Yep.
And then the fuel pump, it's got dual pumps on the same chassis design as the 300, so it still fits our billet fuel pump adapter. It's the same length, same diameter. There's just two pumps in there now. And the way that works with the ECU, or the new ECU, once full boost is made, the second fuel pump will come on, and they call it rising rate. So you're never starving the engine of fuel. Now we're on Jeremy's side, on the port side, on the exhaust manifold, we have an O2 sensor introduced in the exhaust system now, right there. Another new thing is the factory blow-off valve. Brian actually fabricated that system, and I'll let him tell you what you have to do to get that system to work.
I basically cut a 1-inch hole in our intake tube, and then cut some 1-inch pipe, rolled the ends of it, and then welded it on to the intake tube right there. And then you need to do the same thing, but at an angle on your intercooler tube. Roll 1-inch pipe, cut a hole in the tube, and then weld it on, and it seemed to work out pretty good. So
It works really good. I was kind of hoping the blow-off valve would make some sort of noise, but it doesn't. It's silent as well. And it's actually working off of a boost reference line right here. Comes into the intake manifold that actually all the 300s and 230s from the factory, that bung is actually molded into the intake. So if you ever did want to add a manual or analog boost gauge to your engine, that's a really good port to pull off of. Some other things that we noticed, the intake manifold is ginormous now. It is huge. If you look on a 300, you can't really see the section of the intake manifold that's hidden underneath this cover. It's very obvious now. Looks wise, I think the 300 looks a little more compact and cleaner, but in the whole scope of things, performance related, I mean, does it really matter? Not really. They also added what I thought was a heat shield, but it's actually a GPS signal booster. We'll see how well that works. It's just a stainless steel shroud that's attached to the GPS module. So another thing, usually the ECU is mounted right here underneath this beauty cover. That's no longer an option because the Sea-Doo actually brings the intake track, which is oval shaped, up along here, up into the front of the fiberglass hull. Without this cover on here, it's just a big, massive intake. We had to find a new home for the ECU, which ended up being right here. Tiny little guy, still a Bosch unit. We'll see how long it takes them to crack the code on that in order to get tuning available for it. But honestly, 325 horse in one of these is ludicrous. So if you are looking for more power on one, you're probably gonna have to wait a few more months until they crack that ECU, but it's more than sufficient even with 4 people in it in its current state. The wire harnesses have remained the same. They did add a second GPS module to it. Display is still the same. All the controls remain the same. Just a little more fiddling to get this thing in here, but once we do a bunch more of them, it's going to be so much easier. Motor mounts still work, front and rears, intercooler piping, intake piping, the exhaust, cooling system, all remain relatively similar to the 300. If you guys are up in the air on what power plant to get, we have 3 options. We have the 230 horse, the 300 horse, and the 325 horse. The 300 has typically been our base model. If you go with the 230, you're going to save $4,000. If you decide to go with the 325, you're going to be roughly plus $4,000. My final take on the 325, if you're all about quietness, and that's a big concern, definitely go with the 325. If you don't really care and you want that supercharger whine, get the 300. If you spend $1,100 on tuning, you can put it to 325, no problem. Even up to 350 horse. So it really comes down to if you want the quietness or the low end torque. I mean, it's kind of a wash. I personally can't give anyone a 100% answer. That's totally up to you to decide. But we can outfit a 300 to put out the same power as a 325 for about $1,100 more. So with that in mind, you can make the call. Just in case you guys haven't seen yet, we're building an Atom. We're going to do the 13-foot hull, and we already have a brand new 2024 Rotax 325 ready to go in it. It's kind of cool to see these 2 hulls next to each other. The Atom is quite a bit larger than the 12-foot hull that we do here. So it'll be really interesting to see how this thing handles in the tight water, the back channels versus the 12-footer. My guesstimation that this is going to do really well on the open water and larger river systems versus the small tight channels that we have around here. This should also be really good in lakes. 12-footers, Not gonna lie, they don't do that great on the lakes. Not with a lot of boat chop and wakeboard boats going around in circles around you all day. So the Adam, in case you're not familiar with them, they're pickle fork design. They have very distinctive curved window on them. It's a whole different look compared to what we're used to. So we're pretty excited to try this thing out. Got 2 stringers versus 4 stringers. The transom is 1/8 inch. The bump out box the bump out box is 3/16 thick. The transom is 1/8 inch thick, and then there's a 3/8 inch thick delta pad in this for extra protection against bumps and bruises and dents. This is the engine cover that will be going in it. It's going to give us a little bit of storage under the rear seats. This thing is flipped right now. The Atom holes seem like they are specifically designed for the Yamaha 1.8, which is a massive engine in every dimension, length, height, width, weight, much larger package, but we're not going to need all that room, so we're actually going to be able to remove about 8 inches from the back of this engine cover to shift everything back, thus giving us about 8 inches more interior space. So this should be a very, very spacious layout by the time we're done putting the Rotax in it. I don't know if you guys can see, but we lined a 12-footer up with a 13-footer to give you an idea of length difference between the 2 boats. The 13 is substantially longer and quite a bit wider as well. So the Atom is probably going to do really, really well on larger waters. I just think the 12-footer is going to outperform it in tight water. So it really depends on what you plan on doing with it. If you're more technical minded and want to use these things, aka off-road, I think the 12-footer would be the best choice. If you're more into family cruising, going fast, hauling ass, I think the Atom's going to be where it's at. So we'll leave that up to you guys. This hull is available for a custom build right now. If you're interested, let us know. You can build it out any way you like, but it will be getting the 325 engine in it regardless. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and follow us along on our journey of building these crazy mini jet boats. Stay tuned. We have a lot more in store for this guy and Beater Boat Billy. Thanks for watching.